Welcome to the Where Humanity Meets Technology podcast, where we talk to business leaders about cybersecurity, data management, and advanced digital solutions to provide strategies to increase the profitability of your company. Now, here's your host, Maurice Hamilton, the CEO of Infinovate Consultancy Services.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maurice Hamilton, and I am the president and founder of Infinovate. And you all have been to a lot of my podcasts, and our podcast is where we talk about where humanity meets technology. And on this show, we like to speak to different business leaders, business CEOs, executives, and the people actually making a difference out there, where we're actually trying to apply a lot of technology to the betterment or for the betterment of mankind. And today I have a special guest with me, Jimmy Nguyen. And Jimmy Nguyen has a really excellent background here, and that there's so much with him. I just want to share with him. But his credentials are impeccable. And he's a lawyer. He went to USC for law degree, and actually was the founding president of a BitChain Association, co-founding and the president of BitChain Association, and now he's the CEO of Blockchain for All, if I'm saying it correct. You're on many boards that are out there. You're a public speaker. I've seen a lot of your podcasts, and I think that we have a very interesting story with you, Jimmy. So I just want to thank you and welcome you to the show. I'm so happy to have you. How are you today?
I am well, and hello from the very hot summers of Dubai, where I am currently saying hello to you in the United States. I do quite a bit of work here in Dubai in the Middle East, as we'll talk about. So I am well, finishing a very long, very busy week of blockchain and related tech events and meetings and podcast interviews this week. So if you haven't been to Dubai, come, but maybe come when it's a little less hot.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. I have a friend of mine, he goes to Dubai and he actually travels there, and he'll do business for like a day or two and fly all the way back and say, oh, that's a lot.
That is, I don't do that. I usually come for a good chunk of time and spend quite a bit of time here.
Excellent. Jimmy, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here. This is going to be a very enlightening conversation, an educational conversation as well. I'd like to start with talk a little bit about your background. I think your background with your family is a very amazing story. And I actually have a brother who actually served in Vietnam, and he actually spent many years, and everybody can tell you about the stories of Vietnam, or they won't tell you the stories of Vietnam. I'd like to start with, can you tell us a little bit about your story, your family, with Vietnam, and how that inspired you to actually become a lawyer where you want to see change? Can you give us a little story about that?
Sure. First of all, thank your brother for his service, because without his service, even though I know the Vietnam War was controversial in America back in the 1960s and 70s, but without people like him, I probably would not have the life I have today. So I was born in Saigon, in what was South Vietnam at the time, in 1972. My father was a federal judge in the South Vietnamese government. And the night before Saigon fell in April 1975, knowing the country would fall the next day, the US government helped take out about 100,000 South Vietnamese people who were in the military or government and their families, because they would have been likely to be politically persecuted after the fall of Saigon. Obviously, it's a very different country now. We're talking about many decades ago. So I was a 2-year-old baby, the youngest of 4 children. So I have no memories of this, but my parents basically took their 4 children. I was 2, my other sister was 3, and there were 2 older kids. And each of my parents, my mom and dad, took one baby in each hand. My mom took me, a bag of clothes in the other hand, and the 2 other children got on a U.S. military aircraft carrier boat in the night of April 1975 in Saigon Harbor, and got taken out of the country, taken to the Philippines, then to a military camp in Guam, where they stayed for some time before being brought into the U.S. through Camp Pendleton near San Diego in Southern California, where a lot of Vietnamese refugees and immigrants were processed. So a lot of my life story today is defined by the experience we had growing up as immigrant refugees, because I can't imagine my parents or what my life would have been like, as someone in my early 40s, who that's what their age was at the time, with 4 young children, coming to a country where you don't speak the language at all. You're the first Southeast Asians, really Asian people, to come into the neighborhood that they got settled into in Southern California, where I grew up, having to start all over again, get odd jobs, going to English school. And my father, who was a judge in Vietnam, had his first job as an orderly in a nursing home cleaning bedpans. But knowing you don't really have much choice but to work really hard to give opportunities to your 4 children. And so much of my life experience has been about validating the potential that I got to get help to fulfill by having the educational and resource platforms of the life in the United States, as opposed to a developing country like Vietnam was at the time. So it's why I work hard. It's why I know my parents are proud of me. It's what also ultimately led me to thinking about going to law school and becoming a lawyer, was to follow my father's footsteps, because he was never able to practice law in the US.
Oh, so okay. So now we know what inspired you to become a lawyer. So, okay, got it. Your father's footsteps. I got it. That makes
Well,
sense.
it makes you always think about it, right? It's not
Okay.
the only reason I became a lawyer, because I was one of those, I mean, not to be stereotypical, but I was one of those Asian kids who was super good in school, especially in the science and math classes. But I didn't like science and math at all. So, a lot of Asian students end up going to medical school or, engineering school, computer science. And I was really good at those subjects, but I just never really liked it. And one of the big reasons I also considered law school is the activity that defined my career and life in both school and since is I joined the speech and debate team in high school and then in college, and ended up doing really well, becoming a national speech champion in college, and learning to be just a really good public speaker. And it wasn't just being a public speaker, it sort of lit a switch in me that, I was a super shy kid growing up. People don't believe that. But all of a sudden, when I got on a public speaking stage, my old speech coaches would say there was like a little switch that on my back that would just flip on. And it is what made me start thinking about going to law school, because I wanted a career where I could be an advocate, right, where you could be a communicator on behalf of clients or a cause or people. And that's really, in addition to my father having been a judge and wanting one of his sons to be a lawyer, that combination led me to consider law school, and why I went to law school.
Interesting. Interesting. So this is one of those Genesis questions I have to ask. What inspired you? What did you see when it came out to like the blockchain that actually got you into that particular area, got you over into technology?
Yeah, like a lot of things in life, you don't plan everything. This is what I would tell young people. I think we're too socialized when we're growing up to be asked, "Oh, what are you going to be when you grow up? What are you going to do?" And the answer often is, "I'm not sure," and it's okay to say that. So I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. At the time, I thought I wanted to be a trial lawyer, like you see on TV, and except really those were really just criminal lawyers in the U.S. But I joined, a corporate law firm as a young litigation associate, one of these big corporate law firms, trying to be a litigator, but then you realize it's a lot of just paper that you're dealing with, discovery, as the lawyers will know. But I graduated law school in 1995, which was right at the height of the internet and .com boom of Silicon Valley, as you might remember. And so the internet was hot then. And I realized pretty quickly that the older lawyers in my law firm were kind of scared of this new technology thing, which happens, with any new technology. And they weren't really interested in learning about it or pursuing client business in it. Being bright and ambitious, I said, I'm kind of interested in that. I was very also interested in the entertainment and media industries growing up in LA. And I knew that the entertainment world was really looking at, well, how do we start delivering our content, right, through this scary thing called the internet, how we do it and keep it safe. And that sort of led me to go, maybe I should make my career there, or at least use that as an opportunity to stand out, which is another life lesson I sort of like to give, which is try not to do everything everyone else is doing. Why fit in, stand out and win, like my name, Jimmy Nguyen. And so I decided to try to focus on developing clients and business and expertise in there, because it was also an area of law where I think people could accept a young person being their lawyer, right? If you're going to be like a tax lawyer or a trust and estates lawyer, people want the person with gray hair, right? A
Right,
lot of
right.
experience. But when you're talking about new technology, I think even the biggest companies will understand, okay, it's more likely that this person knows what they're talking about. And so I started to focus on this internet and what was at the time called new media world. And it made my name in law. I started getting clients in the field. I started getting known as the digital media, digital technology lawyer. And I was a lawyer for 21 years and a partner in 3 major US law firms. And I started representing startups as well as, Amazon, Uber, Microsoft, the major motion picture studios in the United States, the Miss Universe organization, Major League Baseball, and a lot of big companies, but particularly focused on their digital media, digital technology related needs. So it's not that I was so crazy about Bitcoin and blockchain, but when you work in that digital technology field, you're always having to learn about the new thing. First it was internet, then came social media, then came mobile, right? And mobile apps and smartphones, and then came, all these new things you have to constantly learn about. And Bitcoin emerged in the world in 2009. And I think I started getting calls from clients about it around 2011 and 12, because I had some clients in the online gaming industry, sports betting, online gambling around the world that were using it for payments, since banks in the US did not like to process those type of payments. I had some fintech clients that were looking at virtual currency systems to make international money remittance, sending money across borders cheaper and faster, because it can be very expensive, especially for poor migrant workers, let's say from the Philippines, who move to Canada to work and send money back home. The remittance services take 8-10% of the amount of money, which is a lot when you're sending money back home. And so I started helping clients in those sectors with Bitcoin, blockchain, virtual currency related legal issues. And that's what ultimately just led to me, having some clients call me up and one day say, hey, we're starting a big company in London in the blockchain R&D business. That's my friend Mohammed, by the way, my business partner. I know. Yeah, it's okay. You're on a podcast. Say hi, Mohammed. We'll talk about his company in a second. Okay. It led me to, it's not that I chose Bitcoin and blockchain, I say it found me. Okay. And so I knew I was thinking about leaving law after 21 years in it and doing more things in the business world. And some clients of mine started what is now a big R&D company in blockchain in London, asked me to take a role. I left my law partnership life, and that's what led me down this path, which started around 2015-16 into the Bitcoin blockchain, and now Metaverse, AI, and other technology worlds.
Interesting. Now I'm starting to taste a little bit of the humanity part of here, because you mentioned about the person who actually when the fees were to cost like 10% of their money to transmit money back and forth. Now you look at that and say it's got to be a better way. And so I'm thinking about blockchain. I'm thinking about, and I remember we talked briefly about this before. Your example of a Pakistani company, and they're waiting for their shipping invoices. I mean, they have their invoices, they want to get paid, they've fulfilled their part of the contract. There's no reason why they shouldn't be paid right away, because they did what they're supposed to do, and they have to wait 30, 60, 90 days for somebody else. And I know that when you go to the blockchain, because the blockchain is, it's going to be built on trust, you actually have the ledger, everything's there to make sure that people get paid faster, and especially when we look at like smart contracts. When you look at this and from a global perspective, how do you actually see blockchain impacting, like, especially when you look at supply chain? There's so many different industries. We talk about the media, as far as music. There's so many different elements that we can touch with the blockchain. How do you actually see that's going to be for the betterment of mankind when you look at the blockchain?
Well, I'm a big believer and speaker around the world about implementing blockchain for good, for a world of good is the phrase I use. Unfortunately, we haven't seen much of it yet. And this is something that is frustrating to me as someone who's been working full-time in the industry for almost 8 years now. If we're honest, we've all been talking about blockchain for a number of years. The business community's been thinking about it and talking about it, but you don't really see much use of it, especially for anything that helps humanity. And the reason for that is too much of the oxygen in the industry and the attention has been sucked up by cryptocurrency trading. Right. And when blockchain and Bitcoin first came out, the first use of blockchain technologies was for Bitcoin and now other cryptocurrencies. And people figured out that you could make another cryptocurrency very easily and quickly, or launch your own blockchain quickly. So we live in a world now where there's over 20,000 cryptocurrencies and hundreds of different blockchains, which is ridiculous. The world doesn't need 20,000 cryptocurrencies. But the reason that happened is because people figured out, oh, I can make my own coin. I can make Jimmy Coin, get it listed on Coinbase, a crypto exchange, and all of a sudden the price goes up and I make a ton of money by barely doing anything, and then sell my coins and then leave everyone else holding the bag of, you know, a blockchain and coins that aren't supported by anyone anymore. And so that has given the cryptocurrency and blockchain world a bad name. And unfortunately, for people like me who are trying to advance good use of the technology, we have to fight that. And so it also sucked up the development and business and investor attention, right? When you're trying to build a new company to use blockchain for good, you need developer talent, you need investors, right? And when all those people are going to these things over here where you can make money really fast, that are, you know, slightly shady and speculative, right? It has delayed the good use and growth of blockchain technology. So the examples you gave about using blockchain to improve the efficiency of supply chain management, or the tracking of music rights and how music artists and songwriters are paid, or tracking film, or making invoices verified and paid faster, right? For Pakistani truckers or a pharmacy running, you know, a small business in a developing country. That's where the real power is, but we've seen so little of it because all the oxygen has been sucked up by crypto trading. So that's a big thing I'm trying to fix in the small ways I can do it. And so I have, for the last 5 years, been president of one of the leading Bitcoin and blockchain associations in the world for what's called BSV, the Bitcoin SV blockchain, which is a more scalable version of the Bitcoin blockchain, designed to make it actually useful for something, not just crypto trading and hoping to get rich, to actually use it for data, small payments, to send money more efficiently across the world. But last summer, I left that role to launch a number of my own business initiatives. I formed my own firm here in Dubai called Blockchain for All, in which I do advisory and consulting for businesses and governments wanting to educate their teams and implement this technology. But I've taken partner and now board or chairman level roles with a number of companies. And so the person who just walked in the back of the room, I'm in his office here, that's my friend Mohammed Salman Anjum, who lives here in Dubai but is Pakistani. And as an American, it's shocking to a lot of people that I've made all these business trips to Pakistan. I've never even been to India, but I've been to Pakistan because of people like him, who's got such a great heart and soul, and who's really a big believer in real enterprise use of blockchain. So he has a company that I'm on the board of called InvoiceMate, which uses blockchain technology to improve the tracking of invoices across their journey, so that, you know how it is when you send out an invoice to a client and then you need to try to get it paid, you then bug them 30, 60, 90 days later saying, did you pay my invoice? Oh, it's an accounts payable. Oh, I went to the wrong email address, or you got to call them, right? It's, you know, it's an administrative hassle. But if what a blockchain does is just have a publicly verifiable ledger where we can all see the same events in history. That's all a blockchain is, right? Whether it's Bitcoin payments, we're all seeing the same ones in history. I sell you my car and we record the title on a blockchain. Or in the case of invoices, we can all track where an invoice is along its journey, the date it actually went, when it went to a certain department in accounting, et cetera. And so he delivers that product to businesses and some government entities in the Middle East, which is great. It improves the efficiency and tracking and paying of invoices. But the big thing that we've just started to launch, which is even more powerful, is use that platform to convince banks, 4 of them right now in Pakistan, which is a big developing country, but much poorer than the United States, to offer credit pools to do what's called invoice financing, where if you're an MSME, small business, you send out your invoice, and if your client doesn't pay you for 90 days, that's cash you don't have to run your business or to grow your business. Banks don't really want to do factoring of that or financing of that in Pakistan. They do it in the US a lot, but they're afraid of the risk of fraudulent invoices, right? Or the risk, the administrative burden of verifying, doing the due diligence on the invoices. With his blockchain system, it makes it faster, more reliable, less fraud to verify the invoices, do the due diligence. So we've been able to convince 4 banks in Pakistan, and now just one this week, first financing solution provider in the UAE, to sign deals where they provide the money to issue loans or factoring on these invoices. We provide the tech infrastructure to verify the invoices, provide a matching marketplace between SME businesses who need cash fast on their invoices and banks and financing solutions who have the money to give you the cash with their cut that they take off, to power a new system where SMEs in Pakistan, now the UAE, and hopefully other countries will have better cash flow and hopefully improve digital financial inclusion. That, I think, great, real good use for a world of good that takes so much longer to build than I make my own Jimmy coin.
Which makes sense. Now, with that, in that particular example that you gave me with the invoice made, I love that concept is really awesome. Are you guys using like Tether or any kind of like USD coin or any kind of stable coins in order to make that transactions?
We're not now. We have talked about the possibility of that. Right now, the financing is being provided to the SMEs in fiat normal currency, right? The Pakistani rupee or the UAE dirham. And so we could use a stable coin. Related to that, I actually am chairman of a separate company that is launching a new stable coin issuance platform. We've just released and activated our first one, which is a US dollar one. And so we're considering other world fiat currencies and uses of it. So it's definitely possible to power this with a stable coin to do the payment. The first part is using blockchain just to verify the accuracy of the invoices, right? To make sure, for example, if you're trying to get a loan or financing on your invoice, you didn't fake the invoice. You didn't already get a loan from another bank, right? Where people are trying to double, triple, dipping. Yeah. And so the first step is using blockchain and a bit of AI and machine learning to essentially provide risk scores, kind of like your credit risk score, right? From the credit reporting agencies. So the banks can look at each potential customer and go, okay, this fits my risk parameters. I'll issue you financing on this, whatever, $10,000 of unpaid invoices, because I think you are a credit risk worthy potential client. So that's what we provide now, and how blockchain provides the verification, the trustworthiness of that system. Adding a stable coin, which is a payment mechanism to it, we could do. It's just it's not been a priority yet, but it's possible.
Okay, awesome. And you mentioned also about the Miss Universe contest. Yeah. And I found it very interesting. Can you tell our audience a little bit more about how you got involved with that? What do you do there? How that whole process worked? That's a very interesting story.
So this is a story about how childhood dreams come true in ways you can never expect. So when I was a young kid, I used to sit and watch the Miss Universe pageant with my mom, because this is in the 1970s and 80s and back then in the US it was big on TV. It was, there was fewer channels, right? There's only a few broadcast networks, and it was a big thing because Asian people really like beauty pageants. They're super popular in Asia as well as South America. So my mom really always liked to watch it. And this is probably when I should have realized I was a gay kid, was I wanted to watch the beauty pageants, right? And the big thing is, and maybe you'll understand this, it was the only time in the 1970s and early 80s I saw Asian people on TV.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I was always fascinated, right? There weren't any Asian people on TV, right? And I think as a racial minority, no matter what racial minority you are, I think you're very aware of that, right? And that was literally the only time, except for seeing Connie Chung on TV News sometimes, right? It was like literally the only time I saw Asian people on TV. So I was always fascinated by the Miss Universe pageant and watched it for years. And then as I grew up and became a lawyer and known in the entertainment, media, digital tech worlds, there were interesting, turn of events. I got to meet the president of the Miss Universe organization at a Miss USA pageant. We became friends. And then within a quick period of time, there was a whole legal dispute that started happening with the pageant organization, and she needed to find a lawyer to represent the Miss California organization within their system. And I started doing legal work within the system, and then ultimately became one of the outside counsel for the Miss Universe organization based out of New York when it was co-owned by Donald Trump and NBC. And I represented them for many years as a lawyer. And then one day I got a call asking if I wanted to be a preliminary judge at the Miss Universe organization in Sao Paulo, Brazil. which I almost wanted to fall out of my chair for as the kid who loved Miss Universe pageant. So I've since been a prelim judge at 3 Miss Universe pageants, 1 Miss USA pageant, and have stayed friends with the pageant president and leaders for a long time, and have been talking to them over the years about how to modernize the pageant and giving them ideas about maybe they tried NFTs a couple years ago, not due to me, but they're experimenting, and so I've stayed in contact with the pageant, and through yet another interesting life turn of events, was in Vietnam last summer, speaking at a government internet conference at the invitation of the government that my family left, now that I'm a global blockchain expert, to be their keynote speaker. And it just so happened the Miss Vietnam Universe pageant was happening the same week I was in Vietnam in a different city. And I flew down to Ho Chi Minh City to attend, met people, and the Miss Vietnam that I judged the very first time I judged Miss Universe remembered me when I was backstage and came up and said hello to me. And through her, I got asked a few months later if I would help coach the Miss Vietnam contestant at Miss Universe 2022 that was in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Wow, what a story.
So, I mean, it's like all my worlds converge. I don't know how to describe it and why those things happen. I don't know. It's about what you put out to the universe, I suppose. So it's a combination of legal experience, some tech, media, Vietnam, beauty pageants,
It has something to do with your charisma, but with the relationships that you build. You build up these strong relationships.
That's
someone,
exactly it.
Yeah, they know. And I know you do business all over. You do business like Nigeria, Dubai, Vietnam. Of course, we just talked about that. All over the place. You're all over.
Yeah. So on that note, I do business in what I call the developed world. U.S., U.K., Switzerland, Dubai. To be honest, that's where more money is made. Right. But I think because of my life story, which I talk about a lot in speeches, and I don't know, people tell me like they react to me with a heart, right? Because it's how even though I work in tech, I talk a lot about heart and humanity and people. I get asked a lot to help developing countries because they view these technologies, especially blockchain, as a way to leapfrog and catch up with the rest of the world. They know they're behind, they're poor, right? They have big young populations. So I can't help them all, but due to relationships I have, such as with my friend Mohammed, who's the one who brought me to Pakistan, because he says, big country, huge young population, interested in tech, but they need help. Nigeria and my native Vietnam. I've chosen to focus on those 3 developing countries where, for whatever reason, I have strong relationships with government, business people, and my native Vietnam being one of them, to really help grow businesses, education, and do some parts that I can to help grow there. So that's why I go to those 3 countries in particular, due to relationships. In fact, I'm helping the government of Nigeria plan their 3-day Digital Nigeria big tech convention in Abuja in October. I spoke at it last year, and I'm part of a group that's been asked to plan the thing for them this year. So it's, we can't do everything, but it's I try to do what I can because it relates to the whole Vietnam experience for me as a refugee. Now that I've been more successful in my life and I travel around the world, I realize that the opportunities I have are only because my parents were courageous enough to take us to the United States. And I got the platform and resources to fulfill and continue to fulfill my potential. And there's all these young people in these developing countries that are smart, ambitious, but they're lacking money. Their country doesn't have the resources and infrastructure or support. And it's not fair. Why did I get the life I have and they don't get it?
Wow, that's amazing. You're right. We have to be able to help other people and bring them up to the next level. A lot of times you think about a lot of people need to have the exposure. Just expose me to it, and I'll take it from here.
Yeah, and that's actually, I'm glad you said that, because I'm also a firm believer in it's not my responsibility to ensure someone is successful, right? And it's not my responsibility to ensure some company or young people in Nigeria get funding, right, for their startup. What I can do is help provide resources, opportunities that open the door, that give them the tools to fulfill their potential. You can help them along the way, but I'm a big believer in helping people, but also arming them with the arsenal where they ultimately succeed because of them. And what you're doing is just helping them unlock and fulfill their own potential.
Interesting. And that brings me up to my next question. You just posted this article on LinkedIn a short time ago about the complex of Metaverse. And put the information down. I think about the Metaverse, and I try to tell people Metaverse is more than just virtual reality games. I mean, it could be like the education, it can be an experience, it could be so many different things. You could do trainings with it. There's so many things with it. And I read your article there. You're working with that right now. Can you tell us a little bit about what you meant by the complex of metaverse? And you put down my journey begins.
Yes, yes. It was the first big thing I announced since leaving my last role last year as president of the BSV Bitcoin Association. So one of my frustrations with blockchain, metaverse, and all these technologies is people just talking about it, but not really making things you can see, experience, use. And so I'm very fortunate where I have two partners based out of London who invited me into a project and new venture they're starting, where what we're building is not a metaverse itself. We're actually building an ecosystem in a real estate complex. That's why I use the term complex, because it's also a vague term, right? It means many different things. But it's anchored by, we're building physical real estate sites across 5 global cities. London is the first, then the UAE will be second, then Singapore, Sydney, Australia, and Miami, Florida in the US. That will be a physical site that is multi-use. Will be the main thing that will bring people there, like tourists and consumers, will be a theater performance space, which is fitted with technology where you as an audience member can better merge and experience what's happening physically, a concert in front of you, a play happening, a lecture, with virtual and augmented reality XR experiences, basically merging physical and digital to what we call phygital. So think about it like IMAX theaters, but for metaverse, right? But in addition to that, we want to support all the things necessary to make the services and talent necessary to accomplish this. We're going to have a Metaverse Academy, which is an educational academy to train business executives like you and me about all the potential uses of Metaverse, as well as the creative professionals in the creation of immersive experiences. We're going to have a production studio. So if you're a company, an advertiser brand, a government entity that wants to make an immersive something, we'll have the services through other companies to deliver it for you. We'll have a startup incubator, as well as a bunch of other things to deliver what's necessary education services wise to bring this to life. So that's a really big project. So I'm fortunate to be one of 3 partners in it. We have funding from a Monaco-based investment fund of $100 million to build the first site in London. We're finalizing the funding arrangements for the second site in the UAE. And we're going to get going soon later this year. So we're not going to make the metaverses ourselves. We're just going to be essentially the platform that supports it. But the big message I want to send out from an educational standpoint is exactly what you just said. Let's stop thinking about the metaverse as just a place we play games or see entertainment, because that's what people think of now. It's like just like a video game, right? But immersive. I think with the Apple Provision that just got announced, if you've seen the video, it's opening people's eyes to what's possible. Imagine kids going to school and learning biology and human anatomy, not by just reading a 2D book, but seeing, a 3-dimensional image of the human heart or lungs, seeing the path of disease. Imagine learning about outer space, right, in an immersive environment. Imagine learning about the depths of the ocean and what sadly just happened with the Titan submersible that was going down to the Titanic wreck, and learning about ocean life in immersive environments. That's really powerful, especially for young people with learning disabilities of some type.
Right.
Some people learn visually, right? And I think that's huge. And also for industrial use, to be able to monitor environments like oil fields, oil rigs in the ocean that are hard to get to or not safe, and policing them, monitoring them with immersive digital twins, as we call it, where the environment is digitally twinned and we can interact in metaverse ways. The possibilities of what we could do are really, really powerful. And that's why business people, government leaders, I feel really need to learn about the potential of the metaverse, so that it's not just thinking about it as, oh, that's where I'm going to go, watch Justin Bieber, Beyonce, perform a concert, which is great. And I love that too. And I want to support that too. But, I would love, imagine, political debates for our presidential elections happening in the metaverse, right? That, could be super cool. So that's what that project is. And it's an opportunity for me to work with many metaverse companies across the world that deliver all aspects of this. You do the digital twinning, you make the NFTs, you have an educational, solution for metaverse. Oh, you do, there's companies that already have industrial use where you can use robots in factories to monitor the warehouse, right? And you don't need as many humans to do it. So there's so many possibilities for this immersive future.
Oh, that's pretty awesome there. I 100% agree with you. So
one day we will do an interview, you and I, in the metaverse. I'll invite you to. I'll invite you to my metaverse show, which I'll have one day, and you can be a guest.
That would be awesome. Thank you for that. Now you're probably like me when you hear people talk about artificial intelligence and they say, "Oh, AI is really cool. It's really good," and you want to say to them, "It's been around for a while now," because a lot of people just got exposed to it with ChatGPT. I said, "But there's a lot of things. Look at the machine learning. Look at so many things happening with it." And when you think about that, you think about the future, because we know what Web 1.0, Web 2.0, we look at Web 3.0, now there's Web 3 plus. So there's all many different variations of it. Where do you see that everything's happening so fast right now, and it's so complex? Where do you see that the biggest change will be in the next 3 years?
Well, I think the biggest change people will experience and feel is going to be in AI machine learning. And it really took off about, the last year once ChatGPT emerged. You are correct. AI machine learning has been around for a while, but what ChatGPT did was make the average person finally get to experience and use it in a way they could see the result quickly, right? And then the generative applications for like photo design, video, right, which are coming out, you can put in words and it'll generate art. I think that has accelerated so much the effect on normal people, because now schools are struggling with how to police, right, students, in using AI to write their reports. There was even in the legal system, from my background, I read about a recent court decision where a judge, was basically going to sanction a lawyer for putting legal case citations in a brief that were generated by AI and not actually going to read and check whether the case citation actually said what it says, which you're supposed to do, because the judge, you don't want the judges always having to reread everything you're citing for legal authority. I think that's really fascinating. So I think while blockchain and metaverse, I'm a huge believer in their potential, and I'm working in those fields. In terms of the next 3 years, I think AI is already, but definitely going to continue to impact the everyday person in a way that's more immediate, because people are already using AI to write articles, right? If you're working in the media business now, if you're a content writer for general content, you're already worried about your job, right? There's already lawyer friends of mine saying, there's AI smart contract writing applications now to write basic contracts using AI. I think it'll affect people's jobs. I don't think it's going to replace everyone's jobs, right, but it will affect the jobs of almost every person. And think about it, if you work in human resources. I actually just did a podcast interview the other day talking about the legal policy implications about what would happen if employers, when screening resumes to hire people, use AI to filter through resumes. Well, if you have discriminatory data inputs in about how you filter and determine who's qualified or not, that can influence hiring decisions or employment, review decisions for someone if what goes in has some slight biases based on race, gender, religion, whatever it is. So the construction of the AI models is very important. And I think we're going to see more business use of AI for the functions we do on a normal basis to expedite them. So I think it's going to affect everyone in every job sector in the next few years.
Cool. 2 more quick questions for you. Question number 1, do you think that we'll see stablecoins being used worldwide in a few years?
Yes, because it goes back to what I said about cryptocurrencies. There's so many, and because they're being used not to pay. right? Bitcoin was created and birthed to the world, if you actually read the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper, to solve this issue of making internet payments more efficient. So you don't need a PayPal, a Venmo, all these internet, intermediaries in between. But no one uses Bitcoin for that now, especially in the form of BTC or all these other cryptocurrencies. They don't use it to pay for anything because people have viewed cryptocurrencies as an investment. I buy this coin, I hold it, I hope the price goes way up, I get rich. Dogecoin, nobody uses it. Elon Musk tweets about it, the price goes up, right? It's a meme coin, it's stupid. And so that's why I think the world will only start using digital currencies for payments with stablecoins, because stablecoins are designed, hopefully, to be pegged to the fiat currency, the US dollar, right? One stable coin, one US dollar. You don't acquire that coin hoping it goes up. The whole point is it shouldn't go up and down, right? It should not be volatile. And so I think the world will not start using these new blockchain-based digital payments for remittance, for micropayments, on social media, right? Imagine a world where instead of paying for digital newspaper subscription amounts per month to CNN or New York Times, you pay per article, just 10 or 20 cents. I would do that with a digital payment wallet, but we're probably not going to ever do that with, Ethereum or Dogecoin, because people buy that hoping to get rich. I think stable coins will be necessary for that, which is why I'm chairman of a new company trying to do exactly that, make stable coins so efficient you actually use for payment. We're not marketing it as buy the stable coin so you can buy other crypto. No, it's buy the stable coin so you can use it in daily commerce. And also some countries are looking to create what are called CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, where they issue their own. So I think that is more likely the stablecoin route to be used for daily payments, as opposed to what we call native cryptocurrencies.
Excellent, excellent. Last question then. Where do you see yourself 3 to 5 years from now?
Well, that is a really tough question, because there's where I see what I see myself doing and where I see myself geographically. I just wound down my home in the U.S. in Seattle, and technically I'm sort of a bit of a nomad now. But I'm just starting a new chapter of my life right now, which is a continuation of the law tech, and then blockchain journey. Now I'm leading my own business initiatives and media things to use technology to help people fulfill their potential, whether it's countries, startup entrepreneurs, whatever. So I think I'm still going to be on that journey in 3 to 5 years. I think I'll be working across broad technologies, not just blockchain, but any emerging technology that comes out. And I hope that I will have accomplished some things that deliver innovation to some developing countries like Pakistan, Vietnam, Nigeria. And I hope I'm in a position to inspire more people.
That's awesome. Jimmy, I want to thank you for your time here. This has been a very, not only uplifting and inspirational conversation, but it's actually educational. I think that you've actually alluded to a couple of different points. We try not to go all over the board. We talked about the blockchain. We talked about the metaverse. We talked a little bit about AI, and I just want to thank you for that. So we want to thank you for the time, and I really look forward to having you another conversation with you, even having you on a panel discussion with
anytime.
Thank you. Really thank you for your time.
Thank you. You do a great job, and keep it real in Houston with all those great Vietnamese restaurants that I have to come eat at with you someday.
I will. Thank you. Please do.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to our podcast. This is Maurice Hamilton. We'll catch you on the next podcast, where humanity meets technology.